Blood dripped from Austin Carmichael's split lip as he stumbled through the emergency exit, his $3,000 suit torn and soaked from the broken sprinkler system. Behind him, the sounds of shattering glass and screaming echoed through Carmichael Technologies as protesters swarmed the building. "Thief! Thief!" The chant thundered through the streets as someone hurled a brick through his Bentley's windshield. Paparazzi swarmed like vultures, cameras flashing as he ran desperately through Boston's rain-soaked alleys, his quantum computing empire crumbling in real time. His phone buzzed with devastating alerts: stock down 60%, board calling emergency meeting, federal investigation launched. Austin's hands trembled as he opened the Uber app, his last hope of escape. A modest Honda Civic pulled up, windshield wipers fighting the storm. He yanked open the door and collapsed into the back seat, gasping, bleeding, his life's work destroyed in 30 minutes. The driver turned around, a beautiful black woman with concerned eyes who had no idea she was looking at the most hated man in America. "Oh my God, you're hurt." Rhonda Long twisted in her seat, her dark eyes scanning Austin's battered face. She didn't recognize him, which felt like the first mercy he'd received all day. "Sir, we need to get you to a hospital right away." "No hospitals." Austin's voice cracked as he pressed a handkerchief to his bleeding lip. "Just drive, please, anywhere away from here." Rhonda studied him in the rearview mirror, noting the expensive fabric of his torn suit, the quality of his watch, the way his gray eyes held a haunted desperation she'd seen before in her father's face during their worst financial struggles. This man wasn't just hurt physically, something had shattered him completely. "At least let me clean those cuts," she said, pulling into a quiet parking garage. "I keep a first aid kit in my glove compartment. My father's diabetic, medical emergencies happen." Austin wanted to refuse, to maintain his walls, but as Rhonda gently dabbed antiseptic on his split lip, her touch was so careful, so unexpectedly tender, that something inside his chest loosened for the first time in years. Her fingertips were warm against his skin, and she smelled like vanilla and something tropical that reminded him of peaceful places he'd never allowed himself to visit. "There," she murmured, smoothing a small bandage over the worst cut. "That should help with the bleeding." Her hand lingered for just a moment against his cheek, and Austin felt his pulse quicken, in a way that had nothing to do with the day's trauma. When was the last time someone had touched him with such gentle concern? When was the last time anyone had looked at him and seen a person instead of a profit margin? "Thank you," he whispered, and meant it, more than any words he'd ever spoken. Rhonda settled back into the driver's seat, but continued studying him through the mirror. "You want to tell me what happened back there?" Those protesters seemed pretty angry. Austin's stomach twisted. In the warmth of her care, he'd almost forgotten that by tomorrow morning, his face would be plastered across every news channel in the country. "You don't watch the news? Not much time for news when you're working 3 jobs, Rhonda said with a slight smile. "But I'm guessing from the fancy suit and the fact that people were throwing bricks at your car, you're somebody important who did something they didn't like." The simple honesty in her voice made Austin's chest ache. Here was someone who didn't judge him based on Forbes lists or stock prices or congressional investigations. She saw him as just a man who was hurt and needed help. "Something like that," he said quietly. Rhonda started the car and pulled back into traffic. "Well, Mr. Somebody Important, where would you like me to take you?" Austin realized he had nowhere to go. His penthouse would be surrounded by reporters. His office was a crime scene. His mother would hang up on him. She always did when his name appeared in the news for the wrong reasons. Vincent, his business partner and supposedly his closest friend, hadn't answered a single call since the story broke. "I honestly don't know," he admitted. Something in his voice must have touched her, because Rhonda's expression softened. "There's a 24-hour diner about 10 minutes from here. Quiet place, good coffee, booths in the back where nobody bothers you. Sound okay?" Austin nodded, not trusting his voice. The kindness of this stranger, this woman who owed him nothing, and had every reason to throw him out of her car, once she learned who he was, overwhelmed him. As they drove through the storm-darkened streets, Austin found himself studying Rhonda's profile. She was beautiful in a way that seemed effortless. Her natural hair pulled back in an elegant twist, her caramel skin glowing despite the harsh dashboard lighting. But it was her hands that fascinated him. Long, elegant fingers that moved with precision and confidence as she navigated the traffic. There was something almost mathematical about the way she drove. Calculating angles and distances with an intuitive grace that spoke of a sharp mind. "You're very good at this," he said, surprising himself. "At driving?" Rhonda glanced at him in the mirror, a hint of amusement in her eyes. "At helping people. At knowing what someone needs, even when they don't know themselves." The compliment seemed to catch her off guard. "My mother always said that taking care of people is the most important job anyone can have. Everything else is just details." Austin thought about his own mother, Dr. Samantha Harper, who had spent Austin's childhood analyzing other people's emotions while remaining coldly distant for her own sons. After his father left, calling her weak for crying, for showing any vulnerability, she had rebuilt herself into someone who never showed need, never showed hurt. She had taught Austin that emotions were liabilities, that successful people controlled their feelings rather than being controlled by them. But sitting in this modest car, with this woman who had shown him more genuine care in 20 minutes than he'd received in years, Austin wondered if his mother had been wrong about everything. "Your mother sounds wise," he said. "She is a retired teacher from Trinidad. She immigrated here when I was 8, worked 2 jobs to put me through school. She always said education was the one thing no one could take away from you." Rhonda's voice carried a note of pride, mixed with something that sounded like regret. "You went to college?" Rhonda was quiet for a long moment. "MIT, PhD program in quantum cryptography." She said it so casually that Austin almost missed the significance. His head snapped up. "You studied quantum cryptography at MIT?" "For 5 years. Left 6 months before my defense." Her voice was carefully neutral, but Austin caught the pain underneath. Austin's mind raced. Quantum cryptography was his field, the foundation of everything his company had built. The number of people in the world who truly understood the mathematics behind quantum encryption could fit in a small conference room. And this woman, this Uber driver who was cleaning his wounds and offering him coffee, was one of them. "Why did you leave?" Rhonda's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. "Family needed me more than I needed a degree." There was a story there, Austin realized, a sacrifice that cost her something precious. Before he could ask more questions, Rhonda pulled into the parking lot of Mel's Diner, a modest place with steamed windows and neon signs advertising pie. "Here we are," she said, turning off the engine. "Best coffee in Boston, and they mind their own business." As they walked toward the diner, Austin's phone buzzed with another news alert. The screen showed his photograph with the headline, "Tech mogul accused of stealing quantum research from minority scholars." Austin's blood ran cold, not because of the accusation, he knew he was innocent, but because of the phrase minority scholars. His eyes shot to Rhonda, walking beside him with no idea that her entire world was about to change. The story had legs now. It had a narrative that would destroy everything, including the brilliant woman who had just shown him the first kindness he'd experienced in years. Have you ever had everything you built threatened in a single moment? Share your experience in the comments below. Inside the diner, Rhonda chose a corner booth away from the windows and the handful of late-night customers. Austin slid across from her, acutely aware of how out of place he looked in his torn designer suit. "Coffee?" asked the waitress, a tired-looking woman with kind eyes. "Please," Austin said, "and whatever pie she recommends." When they were alone, Rhonda studied Austin's face in the soft light of the booth. The bandage she'd applied looked small and somehow vulnerable against his sharp cheekbone. He was handsome in the way that money and good genetics could create. Strong jaw, steel gray eyes, dark hair with premature silver at the temples that suggested stress and long hours. But it was the vulnerability in his expression that made her heart ache. "So," she said gently, "you want to tell me what really happened today?" Austin stared into his coffee cup, watching the steam rise. How could he explain that his entire life's work was being dismantled by lies? That someone he'd trusted had systematically destroyed everything he'd built? That the worst part wasn't the money or the company, but the realization that he had no one, literally no one, who believed in his innocence? Someone stole my research, he said finally. Years of work, but they're claiming I stole it from them. Rhonda leaned forward slightly. What kind of research? Quantum encryption algorithms, the kind of work that could revolutionize internet security, protect medical records, financial data, personal communications. Austin's voice grew stronger as he talked about the science. We were so close to a breakthrough that would make current encryption methods look like children's toys. Quantum key distribution based on Bell's theorem? Rhonda asked quietly. Austin's head snapped up. You know Bell's theorem? Local hidden variables are incompatible with quantum mechanics, Rhonda recited. The measurement of one entangled particle instantaneously affects its partner, regardless of distance. It's the foundation of quantum cryptography. Austin stared at her. That's exactly right. Most people with advanced degrees in computer science don't understand the physics behind quantum entanglement. Rhonda smiled sadly. Most people didn't spend 5 years working with Dr. Marcus Phillip at MIT. The name hit Austin like a physical blow. Dr. Marcus Phillip, the brilliant Trinidadian physicist whose groundbreaking work on quantum cryptography had been stolen, according to today's news reports. The man whose life's work Austin was now accused of stealing. Dr. Phillip, Austin whispered. He's mentioned in the accusations against me. Rhonda's expression changed, confusion clouding her features. Marcus is mentioned in what accusations? Austin's phone buzzed again. With trembling fingers, he showed her the news alert. Federal investigation launched. Carmichael Technologies accused of stealing quantum research from Dr. Marcus Phillip and other minority scientists. Rhonda read the headline, her face going pale. You're Austin Carmichael. It wasn't a question. The recognition in her eyes wasn't admiration or starstruck awe. It was something far more complex. Disappointment, fear, and a growing understanding of how deeply she'd just become entangled in something dangerous. Rhonda, Austin said urgently, I need you to know, I never stole anything from Dr. Phillip or anyone else. Every algorithm, every breakthrough my company has achieved came from my own research, my own team's work. But even as he said it, Austin realized how hollow it sounded. How many powerful men had sat in rooms just like this, making the same denials to people who had no reason to believe them. Rhonda's phone rang. The name on the screen made her freeze. Dr. Phillip. She looked at Austin, then at the phone, then back at Austin. Her decision would change everything, for both of them. Dr. Phillip? She answered, her voice carefully controlled. Rhonda, my dear. The elderly voice carried a Trinidadian accent mixed with decades of academic precision. I've been trying to reach you for hours. Are you somewhere safe? I'm at a diner. Why? The news about the quantum research theft, it's not what it seems. There are things happening, dangerous things. Someone is using my name, my research, to destroy innocent people. I need to see you immediately. Rhonda looked across the table at Austin, whose gray eyes held a desperate hope. Phillip, what if I told you I was sitting across from Austin Carmichael right now? The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long that Rhonda thought the call had dropped. Then, Dr. Phillip said finally, I would tell you that you're sitting across from either the most dangerous man in technology or the only person who can help us expose the real criminal. And Rhonda? Yes? Be very, very careful who you trust. Someone has been planning this for a very long time. The line went dead. Rhonda set down her phone and looked at Austin, who had gone completely still. Outside, thunder rumbled across the Boston sky, and lightning illuminated the parking lot in stark, violent flashes. It looks like, Rhonda said quietly, we both have a choice to make. Austin leaned forward, his gray eyes intense. I know you have no reason to trust me. I know that by tomorrow morning, my face will be on every news channel in the country, and yours will be too if anyone sees us together. But Rhonda, he paused, her name feeling precious on his lips. I think you might be the only person in the world who can help me prove my innocence. Why me? Because you know the science, because you studied with Dr. Phillip, because you understand quantum cryptography in a way that most people, including most lawyers and journalists, never will. Austin's voice dropped to an urgent whisper. And because you're the first person in years who has looked at me and seen a human being instead of a headline. Rhonda studied his face in the dim light of the diner. Everything logical told her to walk away, to drive home to her small apartment and her sick father, and pretend this night never happened. Getting involved with Austin Carmichael would mean media attention, legal complications, and risks she couldn't even calculate. But looking into his gray eyes, she saw something she recognized, the desperate hope of someone whose dreams were being destroyed by forces beyond their control. She had felt that same desperation 6 months ago, when she'd walked away from her PhD, from her life's work, from everything she'd sacrificed to achieve. Maybe this was her chance to fight back. Maybe this brilliant, vulnerable man who had trusted her with his pain was exactly the ally she needed to reclaim the future that had been stolen from both of them. Thunder crashed overhead as Rhonda made her decision. "Tell me everything," she said. Austin's hands trembled as he pulled out his laptop, the familiar weight of it somehow comforting in a world that had turned upside down. "It started 3 years ago," he began, his voice steady despite the chaos in his heart. "I was working on a new approach to quantum key distribution, a way to create unbreakable encryption using entangled photons." Rhonda leaned closer, and Austin caught that vanilla scent again, mixed with something else. Intelligence, he realized. She smelled like someone who spent her time thinking, creating, solving impossible problems. "The Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen paradox application," she said softly. "Spooky action at a distance." Exactly. Austin's eyes lit up despite everything. When was the last time he talked to someone who understood the elegant beauty of quantum mechanics? But the challenge was creating stable entanglement across fiber optic networks. Every previous attempt had failed because of decoherence. The quantum states collapse when they interact with the environment, Rhonda finished. But if you could create a buffer system, something that maintains coherence while allowing measurement, you'd have truly unbreakable communication. Austin's voice grew excited, forgetting for a moment that his life was in ruins. No government could spy on it, no hacker could break it, no corporation could steal personal data. Rhonda was quiet for a long moment, her dark eyes studying his face. "That's beautiful work, Austin. That's the kind of research that changes the world." The simple acknowledgement hit him harder than any award or recognition he'd ever received. This woman understood not just the science, but the deeper purpose behind it. The dream of creating something that could protect people's privacy, their secrets, their most vulnerable communications. "So what went wrong?" she asked gently. Austin's expression darkened. "My former business partner, Quentin Hastings. We were roommates at MIT, worked together on the initial theoretical framework. But Quentin was always more interested in profit than protection. He wanted to sell the technology to the highest bidder, governments, corporations, anyone with enough money. And you disagreed. I wanted to open source the basic encryption, make it available to journalists, activists, ordinary people who needed protection from surveillance." Austin rubbed his temples, where a headache was building. "We fought about it constantly. Finally, I bought out his share of the company and told him to find another project." Rhonda's phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it and her face went pale. "What is it?" Austin asked. "My friend Mimi. She's an ER nurse at Massachusetts General. She says the hospital just admitted Dr. Phillip with chest pains." Rhonda's voice was tight with worry. "He's stable, but they're keeping him overnight for observation." Austin felt ice forming in his stomach. "That's not a coincidence." "What do you mean?" "Quentin doesn't just destroy people professionally. He destroys them personally, emotionally, physically, if necessary." Austin's gray eyes went hard with anger. "If Dr. Phillip was planning to help me, if he knew something that could expose the real theft." Rhonda was already standing. "We have to go to the hospital." "Rhonda, no." Austin caught her hand, and the contact sent electricity shooting up his arm. Her skin was warm, soft, and he could feel her pulse racing beneath his thumb. "If anyone sees us together, especially at the hospital with Dr. Phillip, it'll look like we're coordinating our stories. It'll make everything worse." She looked down at their joined hands, and Austin saw her breath quicken slightly. The attraction between them was becoming impossible to ignore. even in the middle of a crisis that could destroy them both. "Then what do you suggest?" she asked, but she didn't pull her hand away. Austin's thumb traced gently across her knuckles, and he watched her eyes flutter closed for just a moment. "We go separately. You visit Dr. Phillip as his former student. I'll stay in the parking garage and monitor the news feeds, see if I can figure out what Quentin's next move will be. And then we meet at my penthouse. I have a secure server there, encrypted commutations that even the FBI can't crack. If we're going to fight this, we need to do it smart." Rhonda opened her eyes and looked directly into his. "Are you sure you want my help? Once I'm involved, there's no going back. My face will be in the papers. My family will be dragged into this." Austin brought her hand to his lips and pressed a gentle kiss to her palm. The gesture was intimate, protective, and completely unconscious, as if his body had decided to trust her even before his mind caught up. "I've never been more sure of anything," he whispered against her skin. Rhonda's breath caught, and for a moment, the diner around them seemed to fade away. There was just the two of them, connected by touch and by the growing understanding that they were stronger together than either could be alone. The moment was shattered by Austin's phone ringing. The caller ID made his blood freeze. Vincent Barkley, CTO, Carmichael Technologies. "I have to take this," Austin said reluctantly, releasing Rhonda's hand. "Austin, where the hell are you?" Vincent's voice was tight with panic. "The FBI was here for 3 hours. They seized servers, files, everything, and there's something else, something bad." "What?" "Quentin held a press conference 20 minutes ago. He's claiming that you not only stole Dr. Phillip's research, but that you've been systematically stealing from minority researchers for years. He has documents, Austin, financial records showing payments to graduate students, research assistants, people who supposedly sold you their work for pennies." Austin felt the world tilt sideways. "That's impossible. I know you didn't. But the documents look real. Professional-grade forgeries that would fool anyone who doesn't know you personally." Vincent's voice dropped to a whisper. "Austin, he's been planning this for years. The payments, the shell companies, the paper trail. It's all designed to make you look like a predator who exploits young researchers." Austin looked across the table at Rhonda, who was watching his face with growing concern. If Quentin's plan was to frame him as someone who stole from young minority researchers, then being seen with Rhonda, a brilliant black woman who had left her PhD program under mysterious circumstances, would be the final nail in his coffin. "Vincent, I need you to do something for me," Austin said quietly. "I need you to research everyone who worked with Quentin at MIT, every research assistant, every graduate student, every professor he collaborated with. Look for patterns, financial irregularities, anything that doesn't add up. Austin, the board is meeting tomorrow morning to discuss your removal as CEO. If you don't have something concrete by then, just do it, Vincent, please." Austin hung up and looked at Rhonda, whose intelligent eyes had clearly picked up most of the conversation. "It's worse than you thought, isn't it?" she said. "Much worse. Quentin isn't just accusing me of stealing Dr. Phillip's work. He's claiming I've been systematically stealing research from minority scholars for years. He has forged documents, fake financial records, everything needed to destroy me completely." Rhonda was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. "And if anyone sees us together, it'll look like you're another one of my victims, or worse, that you're in on the scheme." Austin's voice was heavy with despair. "Rhonda, I can't ask you to risk your reputation, your future, for someone you've known for 3 hours." But Rhonda was already shaking her head. "You're not asking. I'm choosing." She leaned forward, her eyes blazing with determination. "Austin, what if I told you that Dr. Phillip isn't the only MIT researcher whose work has been stolen? What if I told you that I left my PhD program because someone took my quantum encryption algorithm and published it under their own name?" Austin went completely still. "What?" "6 months ago, I discovered that my dissertation research, 5 years of work on quantum cryptographic protocols, had been published in the Journal of Quantum Computing by someone else. Someone who had access to the MIT servers, who could manipulate timestamps and authorship records. Who?" Rhonda's voice was barely a whisper. The paper was co-authored by Quentin Hastings. The pieces began falling into place in Austin's mind like a complex equation finally solving itself. Quentin hadn't just stolen from him. He had been systematically stealing from young researchers for years, building his reputation and his company on other people's work. And now he was framing Austin for his own crimes. "Rhonda," Austin said urgently, "do you still have your original research files? Your notes, your calculations, anything that proves you developed the algorithm?" "Hidden on an encrypted drive at my apartment. I was too angry and hurt to delete them, but too afraid to do anything with them." Austin's mind raced. If we can prove that Quentin stole your work, if we can show a pattern of theft going back years, we can expose him before he destroys you. Rhonda's eyes were bright with possibility. "But Austin, we'd be taking on someone with unlimited resources, political connections, and a team of lawyers who specialize in destroying people. Are you willing to take that risk?" Rhonda thought about her father, about the medical bills that kept her driving for Uber instead of pursuing her dreams. She thought about the algorithm that could have changed her life, stolen by a man who saw her as disposable. She thought about Dr. Philip lying in a hospital bed, his brilliant mind under attack. And she thought about Austin, this complicated, vulnerable man who had somehow shown her more genuine respect in 3 hours than most people showed her in months. "Yes," she said simply. Austin reached across the table and took both of her hands in his. This time, the contact was deliberate, meaningful, a promise and a partnership sealed with touch. "Then we fight," he said. As they left the diner together, neither of them noticed the photographer with the telephoto lens sitting in a van across the parking lot. Or the headline that would appear in the morning papers: "Disgraced tech moguls late-night meeting with mystery woman." The war for their reputations, their futures, and their hearts was just beginning. Austin's penthouse occupied the top floor of a converted warehouse in Boston's Fort Point district, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the harbor. Under normal circumstances, Rhonda would have been impressed by the elegant minimalism, the carefully curated art, the kitchen that looked like it belonged in a 5-star restaurant. But nothing about this night was normal. "Coffee?" Austin asked, moving toward the kitchen with nervous energy. "Please." Rhonda was studying the wall of monitors that dominated one corner of the living space. "This is quite a setup. I do most of my development work from home. Trust issues with servers and corporate networks." Austin's mouth twisted in a bitter smile. "Turns out I was right to be paranoid." As Austin prepared coffee, Rhonda found herself watching him move around the kitchen. His torn suit jacket was draped over a chair, leaving him in a white dress shirt that had somehow survived the day's chaos relatively intact. There was something intimate about seeing him in his private space, something that made her pulse quicken in ways that had nothing to do with the danger they were facing. He brought her a mug, real ceramic, not the paper cups from the diner, and their fingers brushed as she took it. The contact lasted a moment longer than necessary, and Rhonda saw Austin's gray eyes darken slightly. "Show me your research," he said, his voice rougher than before. Rhonda pulled out her laptop and connected an encrypted drive. As the files loaded, Austin moved to stand behind her chair, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. "Here," she said, opening a document filled with complex mathematical equations. "This is the quantum key distribution protocol I developed. It solves the decoherence problem by creating redundant entanglement channels." Austin's sharp intake of breath interrupted her. "Rhonda, this is brilliant, absolutely brilliant." She turned to look at him, finding his face much closer than she'd expected. "You really think so?" "I think this algorithm could revolutionize everything. Quantum communication, data security, privacy protection." Austin's voice trailed off as he realized how close they were standing. "I think whoever stole this from you is not just a thief, but an idiot for not recognizing its true value." Rhonda felt her heart skip as Austin's gaze dropped to her lips for just a moment before returning to her eyes. The air between them seemed to crackle with electricity, a different kind of quantum entanglement that had nothing to do with photons and everything to do with two people who were falling for each other in the middle of a crisis. "Austin," she whispered, "I know." His hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb tracing the line of her cheekbone. This is terrible timing. The worst. We barely know each other, practically strangers. And tomorrow, both our lives could be destroyed. Completely ruined. But even as they listed all the reasons why they shouldn't be drawn to each other, Austin was leaning closer, and Rhonda was tilting her face up toward his. Their first kiss was soft, tentative, a question more than a statement. But when Rhonda's hand fisted in his shirt and pulled him closer, when Austin's other arm wrapped around her waist and lifted her slightly off the ground, the kiss deepened into something hungry and desperate and necessary. They broke apart, breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. "We can't," Austin said, but his hands were still holding her close. "Absolutely not," Rhonda agreed, but she was tracing patterns on his chest through his shirt. "It would complicate everything, make everything worse, destroy our credibility, ruin our reputations." But the space between them was disappearing again, and this time when their lips met, there was nothing tentative about it. This kiss was fire and need and the desperate relief of finding someone who understood not just your mind, but your heart. Austin's phone chose that moment to explode with notifications, news alerts, missed calls, text messages from reporters who had somehow gotten his private number. The harsh electronic sounds shattered the moment like breaking glass. They stepped apart reluctantly, and Austin checked his phone with shaking hands. "What is it?" Rhonda asked. Austin's face went white. "There's a photo of us leaving the diner together." He showed her the screen, a grainy but clearly recognizable image of them walking side by side toward her car, his hand on her lower back in a gesture that looked protective and intimate. The headline read, "Billionaire's Crisis Leads to Secret Late-Night Rendezvous with Mystery Woman." "How did they get this so fast?" Rhonda breathed. "Quentin." Austin's voice was hard with anger. "He's been having me followed, probably for weeks. He knew exactly when to spring his trap." Rhonda sank into a chair, the magnitude of what they were facing finally hitting her. "This makes it look like we planned this, like I'm working with you to create some kind of cover story. Or like you're another one of my alleged victims." Austin began pacing, his sharp mind already calculating damage and possibilities. "By tomorrow morning, every news outlet in the country will be trying to identify you. They'll dig into your background, your family, your reasons for leaving MIT. My father." Rhonda's voice was barely a whisper. "He doesn't need this stress, not with his condition." Austin stopped pacing and looked at her, really looked at her, this brilliant, courageous woman who had been willing to risk everything to help him, who had shared her own painful story of theft and betrayal, who had kissed him like he was worth saving. "I'll fix this," he said firmly. "I'll release a statement saying you were just a random Uber driver who helped an injured passenger. I'll make sure your name stays out of the papers." "And then what? You fight this alone?" Rhonda shook her head. "Austin, you need my research. You need someone who understands the science and can explain it to lawyers and judges and juries." "I need you," Austin said simply, the words escaping before he could stop them. The honesty in his voice made Rhonda's heart clench. "I need you too, but we have to be smart about this. If we're going to work together, we have to stay focused on exposing Quentin. We can't let ourselves get distracted by the fact that you're the most incredible woman I've ever met, Austin. By the fact that when you touch me, I feel like I can breathe again for the first time in years. Austin, stop. By the fact that I think I'm falling in love with you." The words hung in the air between them like a challenge. Rhonda stared at him, this man who had somehow become essential to her in the span of a few hours. "You don't love me," she said softly. "You love that I believe you're innocent. You love that I can help you fight back. But you don't love me." Austin crossed the room in 3 quick strides and knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. "Rhonda, look at me." She did, and the intensity in his gray eyes made her breath catch. "I loved watching your mind work when you explained quantum entanglement. I loved the way you took care of me without asking for anything in return. I loved that you chose to help a stranger even when it put you at risk." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I loved the way you kissed me like I was worth saving." Rhonda felt tears gathering in her eyes. This is crazy. People don't fall in love in one night. People don't have their entire lives destroyed in one day either. But here we are. Austin's thumbs traced gentle circles on her hands. I know it's crazy. I know it's impossible. But I also know that when I'm with you, I feel like the man I always wanted to be, instead of the machine I taught myself to become. Before Rhonda could respond, Austin's secure communication system chimed with an incoming encrypted message. The sender was listed as M. Phillip, MIT. Austin read the message aloud. Austin and Rhonda, I hope you are together and safe. I have been thinking about our situation, and I believe I know how to expose Quentin's crimes. But it will require trust, courage, and perfect timing. Meet me tomorrow at my office at MIT. Come separately, and tell no one. The future of quantum research, and both your reputations, depends on what we do next. Marcus. Rhonda and Austin looked at each other, both understanding that they had reached a point of no return. Tomorrow, they would either clear their names and expose a massive scientific fraud, or they would lose everything they had ever worked for. Are you still with me? Austin asked quietly. Rhonda thought about her algorithm, stolen and credited to someone else. She thought about Dr. Phillip, brilliant and vulnerable in his hospital bed. She thought about Austin, who had somehow become precious to her in ways she couldn't fully understand. And she thought about the kiss they had shared, the promise of something beautiful and complicated and worth fighting for. I'm with you, she said. Outside Austin's penthouse windows, the first gray light of dawn was beginning to touch the Boston harbor. In a few hours, the real battle would begin. What would you sacrifice to protect someone you've just started to love? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The meeting with Dr. Phillip had changed everything. Austin sat in his penthouse that evening, staring at the stack of evidence they had gathered. Documents that proved Quentin's systematic theft of research from minority scholars dating back 7 years. Dr. Phillip had been meticulous, keeping copies of every original file, every communication, every piece of work that had been stolen and republished under Quentin's name. But it was Rhonda's algorithm that would be their smoking gun. Her quantum encryption protocol wasn't just stolen. It was the foundation of Quentin's entire company. Without her work, Quantum Secure would collapse overnight. The irony wasn't lost on Austin. The woman who had rescued him from the worst day of his life might also be the key to his salvation. Rhonda emerged from his guest bathroom wearing one of his MIT t-shirts and a pair of his sweatpants that were far too big for her. Her natural hair was freed from its professional twist, falling in soft curls around her shoulders. She looked younger like this, more vulnerable, and Austin felt his heart clench with tenderness. Any word from your lawyer? She asked, settling onto the couch beside him. She thinks we have a strong case. But proving systematic fraud will take months, maybe years. Austin rubbed his eyes tiredly. And that's assuming the media doesn't destroy us first. The news coverage had been brutal. Austin's face was on every channel, painted as a predatory billionaire who exploited young researchers. Rhonda had been identified as a former MIT student with ties to the quantum computing program, and reporters were already digging into her background. I'm sorry, Austin said quietly. I never wanted you to get dragged into this mess. Rhonda turned to face him, tucking one leg beneath her on the couch. Austin, stop apologizing. We're in this together, remember? But your family will be fine. My mother is tougher than any reporter, and my father's too sick to watch the news anyway. Rhonda's voice was firm, but Austin caught the worry in her eyes. Besides, someone needs to fight for Dr. Phillip, for all the students whose work was stolen. If not us, then who? Austin studied her face in the soft light of the living room. How had this happened? How had a stranger become so essential to him in just 2 days? When Vincent had called earlier to warn him that the board was definitely voting to remove him as CEO tomorrow, Austin's first thought hadn't been about the company or the money. It had been about protecting Rhonda from the fallout. What are you thinking about? She asked softly. You. The honesty escaped before he could censor it. "I'm thinking about how you've turned my entire world upside down in the most beautiful way possible." Rhonda's breath caught slightly. "Austin, I know we said we wouldn't let ourselves get distracted. I know the timing is impossible. But Rhonda, when I look at you, I see everything I never knew I was missing." She was quiet for a long moment, her dark eyes searching his face. "What do you see when you look at me?" Austin shifted closer, until their knees were touching. "I see someone who sacrificed her dreams to take care of her family. Someone who turned pain into strength, who chose kindness, even when the world was cruel to her." His hand came up to cup her cheek. "I see someone who made me remember what it feels like to hope." Rhonda leaned into his touch, her eyes fluttering closed. "You want to know what I see when I look at you? Tell me." Instead of answering with words, Rhonda leaned forward and kissed him. This kiss was different from the ones they'd shared before. Slower, deeper, full of promise and tenderness. Austin's arms came around her, pulling her closer until she was half lying across his chest. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Rhonda," Austin said, his voice rough with emotion and desire. "I know." She pressed her forehead against his. "I know this is crazy. I know we've only known each other for 2 days. But Austin, I've never felt anything like this before." "Like what?" "Like I could trust someone completely. Like I could let someone see all of me, the brilliant parts and the broken parts, and everything in between, and not be afraid they'd leave." Austin's heart clenched at the vulnerability in her voice. "Show me," he whispered. "Show me all of you." Rhonda pulled back to look at him, searching his face for any sign of doubt or hesitation. What she saw instead was pure acceptance, complete adoration, and a love so genuine it made her feel like she could conquer the world. Slowly, deliberately, she took his hand and placed it over her heart. "Feel that?" Austin nodded, his palm warm against her chest, where her heart was racing beneath the thin cotton of his t-shirt. "That's what you do to me," she said. "Every time you look at me like I'm precious. Every time you trust me with your pain. Every time you make me feel like I'm worth fighting for." Austin's other hand tangled in her curls, gentle but possessive. "You are worth fighting for. You're worth everything." This time when they kissed, there was no hesitation, no analysis of consequences or timing. There was only the desperate need to be closer, to comfort and be comforted, to claim and be claimed by the person who had become essential to their survival. Austin's hands found the hem of his t-shirt that she was wearing, and he paused, looking into her eyes with a question he didn't need to voice. "Yes," Rhonda whispered against his lips. "Yes, to everything." They moved together to his bedroom, stopping to kiss and touch and whisper promises against each other's skin. Austin's hands trembled as he slowly lifted the shirt over her head, his gray eyes dark with wonder as he took in the beauty of her caramel skin in the moonlight streaming through his windows. "You're perfect," he breathed, his fingers tracing reverent patterns across her shoulders, down her arms, learning the geography of her body like he was memorizing something precious. "So are you," Rhonda whispered, her hands working at the buttons of his shirt with careful precision. When she pushed the fabric away from his shoulders, she pressed soft kisses to the strong line of his collarbone, tasting salt and something uniquely him. They undressed each other slowly, tenderly, each piece of clothing removed like the peeling away of old wounds and protective barriers. When they finally came together skin to skin, the sensation was overwhelming, not just physical, but emotional, spiritual, the recognition of two souls finding their perfect complement. "I love you," Austin whispered against her throat, as he traced the line of her neck with lips and tongue. "I know it's too soon, I know it's impossible, but I love you, Rhonda." "I love you too," she breathed, her hands fisting in his dark hair as waves of sensation washed over her. "I love your brilliant mind, and your wounded heart and the way you make me feel like I can be exactly who I am." Their lovemaking was a conversation conducted in touches and sighs, in the arch of backs and the meeting of mouths, in whispered endearments and promises of forever. Austin shook her body. With the same focused intensity he brought to solving complex equations, learning what made her gasp and tremble and call his name like a prayer. Rhonda gave herself to him completely, holding nothing back, letting him see her pleasure and her vulnerability, and her fierce protective love. When she took him into her body, when they moved together in the ancient rhythm of lovers throughout time, it felt like coming home to a place she'd never known she was searching for. They reached their peak together, Austin's name on her lips, and hers on his, their bodies trembling with the force of their connection. In that moment of complete surrender, all the walls Austin had built around his heart crumbled completely, and all the fears that had held Rhonda back dissolved into nothing. Afterward, they lay entwined in his bed, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her back. The city lights sparkled beyond his windows. But the world outside felt distant and unimportant compared to the sanctuary they had created together. "What happens now?" Rhonda asked softly, her breath warm against his skin. Austin tightened his arms around her. "Now we fight. Together. And when this is all over, when we've cleared our names and exposed Quentin and gotten justice for Dr. Phillip and all the others." "What then?" Austin tilted her chin up so he could look into her eyes. "Then I spend the rest of my life proving that you're the best thing that ever happened to me." Rhonda smiled, the expression radiant in the moonlight. "Is that a promise, Mr. Carmichael?" "That's a vow, Dr. Long. I haven't finished my PhD yet." "You will. We'll make sure of it." Austin's voice was fierce with determination. "Your algorithm is going to change the world, Rhonda. And I'm going to make sure you get every bit of credit you deserve." They were quiet for a while, holding each other close, both knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new attacks, new threats to everything they were building together. But for now, in the safety of Austin's arms, Rhonda felt invincible. "Austin?" she said eventually. Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever Quentin throws at us, we face it together. Promise me." Austin pressed a kiss to the top of her head, breathing in the vanilla scent of her hair. "Together," he promised. "Always together." But even as they drifted off to sleep, wrapped in each other's arms and the glow of new love, neither of them saw the telephoto lens aimed at Austin's bedroom window from the building across the street, or the photographer who had been paid handsomely to document their most intimate moments. By morning, their private declaration of love would become a public scandal that threatened to destroy everything they had fought to build. Austin woke to the sound of his phone ringing insistently. Sunlight was streaming through his bedroom windows, and Rhonda was still curled against his side, her hair spread across his chest like silk. For a moment, he let himself simply watch her sleep, marveling at how peaceful she looked, how right it felt to wake up beside her. Then reality crashed back as he saw Vincent's name on his phone screen. "Vincent?" Austin answered quietly, trying not to wake Rhonda. "Austin, we have a problem. A big one." Vincent's voice was tight with panic. "Check your email. Now." Austin carefully extricated himself from Rhonda's embrace and grabbed his laptop from the bedside table. His secure email inbox contained a message with no sender information and a subject line that made his blood run cold. "Payment for services rendered." The message contained a single attachment, a high-resolution photograph of him and Rhonda in bed together, clearly taken through his bedroom window. The image was tasteful enough to publish in a newspaper, but intimate enough to be devastating. Below the photo was a simple message: "Withdraw all accusations against Quantum Secure and Quentin Hastings, or this image appears on the front page of every newspaper in America tomorrow morning. You have 12 hours to decide." "Austin?" Rhonda had woken up and was looking at him with concern. "What's wrong?" Austin showed her the email, watching her face go pale as she understood the implications. "He had us followed," she whispered. "He had photographers watching your apartment." "This was planned," Austin said, his voice hard with anger. "Everything, the timing of the accusations, the media frenzy, even bringing us together. Quentin orchestrated all of it." Rhonda sat up, pulling the sheet around herself. "What do you mean, bringing us together?" Austin's mind was racing, connecting pieces of a puzzle he should have seen earlier. "Think about it. What are the odds that the one Uber driver who picked me up that night would happen to be a former MIT quantum cryptography student whose work was stolen by the same man who's trying to destroy me?" You think he arranged for me to be your driver? I think he's been planning this for months. He knew that eventually I'd need an ally with your specific expertise. He knew that if he could document a relationship between us, he could use it to discredit both of us. Austin stood up and began pacing. The question is, how did he know we'd fall in love? Rhonda finished softly. Austin stopped pacing and looked at her. Even with everything falling apart around them, even knowing that their private moments had been violated and weaponized, the sight of her in his bed still made his heart race. He underestimated us, Austin said firmly. He thought he could manipulate us into a relationship he could exploit. He didn't count on what we actually found together. Rhonda stood up and walked to him, not caring that she was wearing only a sheet. So what do we do? Austin cupped her face in his hands, looking into her dark eyes with fierce determination. We call his bluff. Austin, if that photo gets published, then it gets published. Let the world see that I'm in love with the most brilliant, courageous woman I've ever met. Let them see that we chose each other in the middle of the worst crisis of our lives. Austin's voice grew stronger with each word. The photo shows us together, but it doesn't show us conspiring or coordinating stories. It shows two people who found something worth fighting for. Rhonda searched his face. Are you sure? Once that photo is public, there's no going back. Your reputation, your company, everything you've built is worth nothing if I have to betray you to save it. Austin pressed his forehead against hers. I told you last night that I love you. That wasn't just passion talking, Rhonda. That was the truth, and I won't let Quentin use our love as a weapon against us. Tears gathered in Rhonda's eyes. What if the world doesn't understand? What if they think I'm just another gold digger, another victim, another scandal? Then we'll prove them wrong, together. Austin kissed her gently. We'll expose Quentin's crimes, clear Dr. Phillips' name, get you credit for your algorithm, and show the world that love isn't a weakness. It's the strongest force in the universe. Rhonda smiled through her tears. You make it sound easy. It won't be easy. It'll be the hardest thing either of us has ever done. Austin's gray eyes were serious but confident. But we're not the same people we were 2 days ago. You've made me braver, stronger, more human. And I hope I've shown you that you're worth fighting for, worth celebrating, worth loving exactly as you are. You have, Rhonda whispered. You've given me back my dreams. Then let's make sure we both keep them. Austin's phone rang again. This time, it was Dr. Phillip. Dr. Phillip? Austin answered on speaker so Rhonda could hear. Austin, Rhonda, I hope you're both well. I have news. The elderly professor's voice was excited despite the early hour. I've been in contact with the Journal of Quantum Computing. They're willing to publish a retraction of Quentin's paper and a full investigation into the authorship fraud. But they need Rhonda's original research files and both of your sworn statements. Austin and Rhonda looked at each other, understanding that this was the moment of truth. They could withdraw their accusations, protect their privacy, and let Quentin continue destroying other young researchers. Or they could fight back with everything they had. Dr. Phillip, Rhonda said, her voice clear and strong, we'll have everything to you by this afternoon. Excellent. And there's something else. The FBI would like to speak with both of you about a larger investigation into research fraud in the tech industry. It seems Quentin's crimes go far beyond what we initially suspected. After they hung up, Austin pulled Rhonda into his arms. Last chance to change your mind, he said softly. Once we do this, we're all in. Rhonda looked up at him, this man who had somehow become her partner, her lover, her co-conspirator in the fight for justice. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. As they began preparing for the battle ahead, neither of them noticed the email that had just arrived in Austin's inbox from an encrypted account. Congratulations on choosing love over self-preservation. Now let's destroy Quentin Hastings together, a friend. The war was about to begin. The press conference was scheduled for 2 o'clock. Austin stood in his penthouse living room, adjusting his tie for the 3rd time while Rhonda reviewed their prepared statement. Outside, news vans lined the street like an invasion force, their satellite dishes reaching toward the gray Boston sky like mechanical flowers seeking truth. You don't have to do this, Austin said quietly. watching Rhonda practice her portion of their joint statement. I can face them alone. Rhonda looked up from her notes, her dark eyes steady and determined. We've been over this. If I'm not there, it looks like I'm hiding something. If I am there, it shows we're united in fighting these accusations. And if Quentin releases that photo during the conference, then we handle it with dignity and keep fighting. Rhonda stood and walked to him, reaching up to straighten his already perfect tie. Austin, yesterday you told me I was worth fighting for. Today, I'm telling you the same thing. We're gonna walk out there together, tell our truth, and let the world decide. Austin caught her hands and brought them to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her palms. I love your courage. I love your integrity. She smiled up at him. Besides, Dr. Philip sent the retraction request to the Journal of Quantum Computing this morning. The FBI has officially opened their investigation, and our mysterious ally sent another message with what looks like financial records showing Quentin's been paying off journal editors for years. Any idea who our ally might be? Someone with access to very sophisticated financial tracking software and a serious grudge against Quentin. Rhonda's expression grew thoughtful. I have a theory, but I want to wait until after the press conference to share it. Austin's phone buzzed with a text from Vincent. Board meeting moved to tomorrow. They want to see how the press conference goes. Also, something strange. Quentin's been trying to call you all morning, won't say what he wants. Quentin's been trying to reach me, Austin told Rhonda, showing her the text. Probably wants to offer another deal. Maybe he's getting nervous about how much evidence we've gathered. Or maybe he's planning something worse. Austin's jaw tightened. Rhonda, I need you to promise me something. If things go badly today, if Quentin escalates this beyond what we've prepared for, I want you to distance yourself from me. Protect your family, your future. Stop. Rhonda placed her finger over his lips, silencing him. We're partners now, Austin, in everything. That means we protect each other, not sacrifice ourselves for each other. Before Austin could respond, his doorbell chimed. The building's security system showed Vincent standing in the lobby, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. Vincent's here, Austin said, buzzing him up. That's odd. We weren't supposed to meet until just before the conference. When Vincent entered the penthouse, his face was grim. We have a problem, a big one. He handed Austin a tablet displaying a news website. This went live 20 minutes ago. The headline made Austin's blood run cold. Exclusive, secret recordings reveal tech mogul's plot to frame innocent competitor. Below the headline was an audio player and a transcript of what appeared to be a conversation between Austin and Rhonda, discussing how to fabricate evidence against Quentin Hastings. The voices were clearly theirs, the words devastating. This is impossible, Rhonda breathed, reading the transcript. We never had this conversation. Audio deepfake technology, Vincent said grimly. Sophisticated stuff. But definitely artificial. Problem is, most people won't know that. They'll hear your voices and assume it's real. Austin's mind raced. How long do we have before the press conference? 90 minutes. But Austin, the board is already talking about an emergency vote. If this audio gains traction, then we move faster. Austin's voice was steel-hard with determination. Vincent, I need you to contact Dr. Philip immediately. Tell him we need the journal's official retraction statement ready to release today, not next week. Austin, even if we can prove the audio is fake, the damage will be worth it if we can expose Quentin's entire operation. Austin turned to Rhonda. That theory about our mysterious ally. What is it? Rhonda pulled out her phone and showed him a message that had just arrived. The deepfake audio was predictable. I have the original source files that prove it's fabricated. Are you ready to go nuclear? A friend. I think our ally is someone inside Quantum Secure, Rhonda said quietly. Someone with access to Quentin's systems, his files, his plans. Someone who's been watching him commit crimes for years and finally decided to fight back. Austin stared at the message, pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. Vincent, when you researched Quentin's MIT connections, did you find anything about research assistants or graduate students who might have worked with him? Actually, yes, several, but most of them signed extensive NDAs and non-compete agreements. There was one, though, a young woman named Sarah Kim, who worked on quantum cryptography projects and left Quantum Secure under mysterious circumstances about 6 months ago. 6 months ago, Rhonda repeated, right around the time my research was stolen and published. Austin's phone rang. The caller ID simply said unknown. Austin Carmichael, he answered. Mr. Carmichael, this is Sarah Kim. I believe you've been receiving my messages. The voice was young, nervous, but determined. I think it's time we met in person. An hour later, they sat in a private room at the Boston Public Library, away from cameras and reporters. Sarah Kim was exactly what Austin had expected. Brilliant, young, and carrying the weight of someone who had seen too much corruption and stayed silent too long. I worked for Quentin for 3 years, Sarah began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was revealing. My job was officially research coordination, but really, I was helping him steal and republish other people's work. I thought I was just organizing files, editing papers for publication. I didn't realize what he was actually doing until, Rhonda prompted gently, until I saw him publish your algorithm under his name, Dr. Long. I had processed your original files, seen your work, knew it was brilliant. When Quentin claimed credit for it, I finally understood what I'd been part of. Sarah's voice cracked slightly. I tried to quit, but he threatened to destroy my career, claim I was the one stealing research. He has files on everyone, leverage on anyone who might expose him. Austin leaned forward. Sarah, the audio recording that was released this morning. I made it, or rather, I helped Quentin make it, using software he's been developing for months. He's been planning this entire scenario, the accusations against you, the media circus, even bringing you and Dr. Long together. Sarah pulled out a laptop and opened an encrypted folder. But I kept copies of everything, the original source files, the fabrication software, financial records showing payments to journal editors, research theft going back 7 years. Why are you coming forward now? Rhonda asked. Because Dr. Phillip called me yesterday. He said you were fighting back, trying to expose the truth, and because, Sarah hesitated, then looked directly at Rhonda, because I've spent 6 months watching brilliant researchers get destroyed while Quentin profits from their work. I couldn't let it happen to you too. Austin felt a surge of hope mixed with fierce protectiveness. Here was their smoking gun, their witness, their proof of everything they'd suspected. But he also saw the fear in Sarah's eyes, the knowledge that coming forward would make her a target. Sarah, if you testify about this, Quentin will try to destroy you. He's already destroyed me, my reputation, my career prospects, my ability to trust myself. Sarah's voice grew stronger. But maybe helping you will give me a chance to rebuild something worth having. Rhonda reached across the table and took Sarah's hand. You're incredibly brave. And when this is all over, I want to help you finish your research, get the credit you deserve. We all will, Austin added. Sarah, with your testimony and evidence, we can expose Quentin's entire operation. But we need to move fast. The press conference is in 30 minutes. I'm ready. Sarah closed her laptop with determination. Let's bring him down. As they prepared to leave the library, Austin's phone buzzed with another call from Quentin. This time he answered. Quentin. Austin, my old friend, I hear you're planning to make quite a speech this afternoon. Quentin's voice was smooth, confident, almost amused. I thought I should give you one last chance to reconsider. I'm listening. Drop the accusations. Accept responsibility for the research theft. Disappear quietly, and I'll make sure your lovely Dr. Long doesn't suffer any unfortunate consequences. Austin's blood went ice cold. Are you threatening her? I'm offering her protection. The same protection I offered Dr. Phillip when he started making noise about research irregularities. Unfortunately, he didn't take my advice, and now he's in the hospital with a very convenient heart condition. The implication hit Austin like a physical blow. Dr. Phillip's chest pains, his sudden hospitalization, it hadn't been stress or coincidence. You bastard, Austin whispered. Sticks and stones, Austin. You have 15 minutes to make your decision. Call off the press conference, or everyone you care about starts experiencing very unfortunate accidents. The line went dead. Austin looked at Rhonda and Sarah, both watching him with growing concern. What did he say? Rhonda asked. Austin's voice was grim as he relayed Quentin's threat. He's not just stealing research anymore. He's willing to hurt people, maybe even kill them, to protect his empire. All the more reason to stop him, Sarah said firmly. Austin, he's been using fear to control people for years. If we back down now, he wins, and other people get hurt. Rhonda moved to Austin's side, taking his hand. What do you want to do? Austin looked into her eyes. Seeing his own determination reflected there, they had come too far, learned too much, lost too much to stop now. Dr. Phillip was in the hospital because he had tried to help them. Sarah had risked everything to expose the truth. Countless other researchers had been victimized by Quentin's greed. We go to the press conference, Austin said firmly. We tell our story, present our evidence, and let the world know exactly what kind of man Quentin Hastings really is. Even knowing he might retaliate, Austin pulled Rhonda close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Especially knowing that, Rhonda, you've taught me that some things are worth fighting for, even when the fight is dangerous. Our love, our integrity, our responsibility to protect other people, those things matter more than our safety. Sarah gathered her equipment. Then, let's go expose a criminal. As they walked toward Austin's car, Rhonda slipped her hand into his. Whatever happens in there, I want you to know that meeting you, loving you, fighting beside you, it's been the most incredible 2 days of my life. Mine too, Austin replied, squeezing her hand. And it's just the beginning. The press conference venue was chaos. Reporters packed the hotel ballroom, cameras lined the walls, and the air buzzed with anticipation and skepticism. Austin could see Quentin in the back of the room, surrounded by his legal team, his expression confident and predatory. As Austin, Rhonda, and Sarah took their places at the podium, Austin felt the weight of every eye in the room. This was it. The moment that would either vindicate them or destroy them completely. Ladies and gentlemen, Austin began, his voice carrying clearly through the room. 3 days ago, my company and I were accused of systematic research theft. Today, we're here to present evidence that not only proves our innocence, but exposes the real criminal in this case. He looked directly at Quentin as he continued. The truth is more shocking than any of us imagined, and the evidence we're about to present will change everything you think you know about this case. Austin nodded to Sarah, who stepped forward to the microphone. My name is Sarah Kim, and for 3 years, I helped Quentin Hastings steal and republish the research of young scientists. Today, I'm here to tell you everything. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Austin saw Quentin's confident expression falter for the first time. The real battle was just beginning. Have you ever had to choose between your safety and doing what's right? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Sarah's testimony was devastating. For 20 minutes, she methodically dismantled Quentin's empire, presenting financial records, email chains, and audio files that proved systematic research theft spanning 7 years. The room was dead silent, except for the rapid clicking of cameras and the scratch of pens on notepads. The deepfake audio released this morning was created using software that Mr. Hastings has been developing specifically for character assassination, Sarah explained, her voice growing stronger with each revelation. I have the original source files, the fabrication timestamps, and recordings of Mr. Hastings instructing me on how to splice together phrases from real conversations to create false narratives. Austin watched Quentin's face throughout Sarah's presentation. His former friend's expression had shifted from confidence to fury to something that looked almost like panic. When Sarah began detailing the financial payments to journal editors, Quentin abruptly stood and began pushing toward the exit. Mr. Hastings, called a reporter, do you have any response to these allegations? Quentin paused at the ballroom doors, his face twisted with rage. This is a coordinated attack by a desperate man and his accomplices. None of this so-called evidence will stand up in court. What about the original research files that prove you stole Dr. Long's quantum encryption algorithm? Another reporter shouted. For a moment, Quentin's mask slipped completely. Rhonda Long is a nobody, a failed graduate student who couldn't even finish her degree. Her work is worthless. The slip was crucial. in his anger. Quentin had just admitted knowledge of Rhonda's research he had publicly claimed to know nothing about. Austin stepped forward to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard Mr. Hastings demonstrate intimate knowledge of Dr. Long's research, the same research he claims he never saw, never stole, never benefited from. The same research that forms the foundation of his company's primary product." Rhonda moved to Austin's side at the podium. As the press conference concluded, Austin felt a mixture of triumph and apprehension. They had presented their case brilliantly, but Quentin's threats still echoed in his mind. The man was desperate now, cornered, and desperate people did dangerous things. "We need to get to the hospital," Rhonda said quietly as they gathered their materials. "Dr. Philip should hear about this directly from us." "I'll come with you," Sarah offered. "Philip was one of the professors who tried to help me when I first started questioning what Quentin was doing. I owe him an apology for staying silent so long." As they left the hotel, Austin noticed the same van that had been parked across from his building for the past 2 days. His security instincts, honed by years of protecting proprietary technology, suddenly screamed warnings. "Rhonda," he said quietly, taking her arm, "we need to take a different route to the hospital." "Why?" "Because I think we're still being followed." They ducked into a coffee shop and watched through the window as the van drove slowly past, its occupants clearly searching for them. "This is escalating beyond corporate espionage," Vincent said when Austin called him. "I'm contacting a security firm. You need protection." "What we need is to end this." Austin's jaw was tight with determination. "Vincent, has the board made their decision?" "They're waiting to see how the stock market reacts to the press conference. Early indicators are positive. Investors seem to believe your story." "And the FBI investigation?" "Accelerated. Agent Rodriguez says they'll have warrants for Quentin's financial records by tomorrow morning." Austin looked at Rhonda, who was comforting Sarah while keeping watch on the street. His heart clenched with love and fear in equal measure. How had this brilliant, courageous woman become so essential to him in just 3 days? "Vincent, I need you to do something for me. If anything happens to me, I want you to make sure Rhonda gets full credit for her algorithm. I want her to have the resources to finish her PhD, to publish her research under her own name." "Austin, nothing's going to happen. Promise me." "I promise, but you're going to be fine. You're both going to be fine." Austin hoped Vincent was right, but the cold weight in his stomach suggested otherwise. They made it to Massachusetts General through a series of careful detours, arriving at Dr. Philip's room just as visiting hours were ending. The elderly professor looked frail against the white hospital sheets, but his eyes lit up when he saw them. "My dear Rhonda," he said, reaching for her hand. "I watched the press conference from my bed. You were magnificent." "How are you feeling, Dr. Philip?" she asked, settling into the chair beside his bed. "Much better, now that the truth is finally coming out." Dr. Philip's expression grew serious. "But I need to warn you both. This morning, before the press conference, I received a visitor, a man claiming to be from the hospital administration, asking very specific questions about my research files, my computer passwords, my home security system." Austin felt alarm bells ringing. What did he look like? Tall, thin, expensive suit. Very polite, but there was something predatory about him. When I refused to give him the information he wanted, he became quite insistent that my heart condition might worsen if I continued to stress myself with this investigation. "Dr. Philip," Sarah said urgently, "that wasn't a hospital administrator. That was one of Quentin's people. He's been using intimidation tactics on anyone who threatens to expose him." Before Dr. Philip could respond, the lights in the room flickered and went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. "That's not a power outage," Austin said grimly, moving to the window. "The rest of the building still has power." Through the window, he could see 2 men in maintenance uniforms moving purposefully toward the hospital's main electrical panels. They moved with military precision, not the casual efficiency of actual repair workers. "We need to leave. Now." Austin helped Dr. Philip out of bed, while Rhonda grabbed the professor's research files from the bedside table. "I can't move very quickly," Dr. Philip protested. You won't have to, Sarah said, grabbing a wheelchair from the hallway, but we need to get out of here before they cut off all the exits. They made it to the elevator just as Austin's phone rang. The caller ID showed a blocked number. Austin Carmichael. You should have taken my offer. Quentin's voice was cold, dangerous. Now you force me to handle this more directly. If you hurt anyone? The hospital's fire suppression system is about to malfunction. Very tragic. Very sudden. The authorities will blame faulty equipment, of course. These things happen in old buildings. Austin's blood turned to ice. You're talking about killing innocent people. I'm talking about solving a problem. You have 5 minutes to get to the parking garage. Come alone, and maybe the malfunction won't be as severe as it could be. The line went dead just as the elevator doors opened on the ground floor. Austin could smell something acrid in the air. Not smoke, but some kind of chemical that made his eyes water. He's triggering the fire suppression system, Austin told the others as they hurried toward the exit. Some kind of chemical release that will force an evacuation, maybe worse. We have to call the police, Rhonda said. By the time they get here, Quentin will be gone and people will be hurt. Austin stopped walking and turned to face them. I have to meet him. Absolutely not. Rhonda grabbed his arm. Austin, this isn't corporate espionage anymore. This is attempted murder. You can't face him alone. If I don't, he'll hurt innocent people to get to me. Then we all go, Sarah said firmly. He's expecting you alone, which gives us an advantage. Dr. Phillip, despite his hospital gown and obvious fatigue, straightened in his wheelchair with sudden determination. That man destroyed my life's work and threatened my students. I may be old and sick, but I'm not helpless. Count me in. Austin looked at these 3 people. A brilliant woman he loved, a young scientist seeking redemption, and an elderly professor fighting for justice, and felt his heart swell with gratitude and terror. Together then, he said, but we do this smart. The parking garage was dimly lit and eerily quiet. Their footsteps echoed off concrete walls as they made their way toward the section where Austin had parked. Dr. Phillip's wheelchair moved silently, Sarah keeping pace beside him while Rhonda stayed close to Austin. There, Rhonda whispered, pointing to a figure standing beside a black sedan near the far wall. Quentin Hastings looked every inch the successful tech mogul. Expensive suit, confident posture, the kind of smile that had charmed investors and fooled colleagues for years. But Austin could see the desperation beneath the polish, the frantic energy of a man who knew his empire was crumbling. Austin, Quentin called out cheerfully, so good of you to come, and you brought friends. How wonderfully predictable. Let's end this, Quentin, Austin said, stepping forward. You've lost. The evidence is public. The FBI is investigating. Your company's stock is crashing. It's over. Oh, my dear old friend, it's just beginning. Quentin's smile turned predatory. You see, I've spent the last 2 years preparing for the possibility that my operation might be exposed. I have contingency plans, offshore accounts, and new identities already in place. Then why not just disappear? Why hurt innocent people? Because you humiliated me, Austin. You and your brilliant little girlfriend made me look like a fool in front of the entire world. Quentin's mask of civility finally cracked. Do you know how long I've been planning this? How carefully I orchestrated every detail? Including bringing us together. Rhonda stepped forward, her voice steady despite the danger. Especially that. I knew Austin would need a quantum cryptography expert to fight my accusations. I knew that if I could document a romantic relationship between you, I could discredit both of you as co-conspirators. Quentin laughed bitterly. What I didn't expect was that you'd actually fall in love. How touchingly naive. It wasn't naive, Austin said quietly. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. For a moment, something flickered across Quentin's face. Envy, perhaps, or the ghost of a friendship that had died years ago. Well, it's about to be the last thing that happens to you. Quentin reached into his jacket, and Austin's world shifted into slow motion. He saw the gun, saw Rhonda's eyes widen with fear, saw Dr. Phillips start to rise from his wheelchair despite his weakness. But it was Sarah who moved fastest, producing a taser from her bag and firing it at Quentin before he could fully draw his weapon. The tech mogul convulsed and collapsed, his gun skittering across the concrete floor. 3 years of self-defense classes, Sarah explained breathlessly. I always knew this job might get dangerous. Austin kicked Quentin's gun away and knelt beside his former friend, who was conscious but unable to move. It's over, Quentin. Really over this time. The FBI is already here, Rhonda announced, pointing to the unmarked cars that were pulling into the garage. I texted Agent Rodriguez our location when we got off the elevator. As federal agents swarmed the scene, arresting Quentin and his accomplices, Austin pulled Rhonda into his arms. The relief of survival mixed with the adrenaline of danger made him feel almost giddy. Is everyone okay? He asked, looking around at their unlikely team. Better than okay, Dr. Phillips said from his wheelchair, his voice stronger than it had been all day. We did it. We actually did it. Sarah was giving her statement to the FBI agents, her laptop open as she provided the digital evidence that would seal Quentin's fate. Austin watched her with admiration, this young woman who had found the courage to do the right thing despite the personal cost. What happens now? Rhonda asked, her arms wrapped around Austin's waist. Now we rebuild, Austin said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. We clear everyone's names. We get you credit for your research. We help Sarah launch her career, and we make sure nothing like this ever happens again. And us? Rhonda's voice was soft, vulnerable. What happens to us? Austin pulled back to look into her eyes, these dark eyes that had become his anchor in the storm. Us? We have the rest of our lives to figure that out. But I know one thing for certain. What's that? I love you, Dr. Rhonda Long, and tomorrow I'm going to start spending every day proving it. As they walked out of the parking garage together, Austin's phone buzzed with a text from Vincent. Board voted. You're officially reinstated as CEO. Also, the Journal of Quantum Computing wants to publish Rhonda's algorithm as their lead article next month. Oh, and congratulations on saving the world. Austin showed the text to Rhonda, who laughed, the first truly joyful sound she'd made in days. Saving the world? She said. That seems a bit dramatic. Not to me, Austin replied. You saved my world the moment you picked me up in that Uber 3 days ago. The crisis was over, but their story was just beginning. What would you risk to protect the person you love most? Share in the comments below. 3 months later, the transformation was complete. Austin stood in the main conference room of Carmichael Technologies, watching through the floor-to-ceiling windows as Boston Harbor sparkled in the autumn sunlight. The company's stock had not only recovered but reached an all-time high, driven by the success of their new quantum security platform, a collaboration between his original research and Rhonda's revolutionary encryption algorithm. But the real transformation wasn't in the stock price or the company's reputation. It was in the man Austin had become. The Journal of Quantum Computing wants to do a follow-up feature, Rhonda said, entering the conference room with a stack of research papers and that smile that still made his heart skip. Something about the collaboration between established tech companies and emerging researchers. Austin turned from the window, and the sight of her still took his breath away. Not just her beauty, though she was stunning in the deep blue dress that highlighted her curves and her skin, but the confidence that radiated from her now. The woman who had been driving for Uber 3 months ago was now Dr. Rhonda Long, published quantum cryptography researcher and co-founder of the Carmichael Long Institute for Ethical Technology Research. What did you tell them? Austin asked, crossing the room to her. That we'd be happy to participate, as long as they focus on the science and not the romance. Rhonda's eyes sparkled with mischief. Though I did mention that working with brilliant, handsome tech moguls does have certain advantages. Austin pulled her into his arms, marveling at how perfectly she fit against him. Just advantages? Well, there are the occasional fringe benefits. Rhonda's hands came up to straighten his tie, a gesture that had become their private ritual of intimacy disguised as professionalism. such as late-night lab sessions that turn into something much more interesting. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Private demonstrations of quantum entanglement theory. Very private. Austin's breath caught as Rhonda's fingers traced the line of his jaw. Even after 3 months of sharing his life, his bed, his dreams, she could still make him feel like a teenager experiencing his first kiss. "Dr. Long," he murmured against her ear, "are you suggesting we conduct unauthorized experiments?" "I'm suggesting," Rhonda said, pulling back to look into his gray eyes, "that some discoveries are worth extensive research." Before Austin could respond, Vincent knocked on the conference room door. "Sorry to interrupt, but we have visitors. Good ones," he added quickly, seeing their concerned expressions. Dr. Marcus Phillip entered the room, followed by Sarah Kim and a young woman Austin didn't recognize. Dr. Phillip looked healthier than he had in months. Austin watched Rhonda as she spoke, his heart swelling with love and admiration. This was what she had become, not just a brilliant scientist, but a protector of other brilliant minds. The institute they had founded together was already helping 12 young researchers protect and develop their work. "There's something else," Sarah said, pulling out her tablet. "The FBI investigation into Quentin's operation has uncovered a network of research theft that goes beyond what we initially suspected. Companies across Silicon Valley, academic institutions, even government contractors, all connected to systematic intellectual property theft." "How extensive?" Austin asked. "Potentially hundreds of researchers over the past decade, billions of dollars in stolen intellectual property." Sarah's expression was grim but determined. "Agent Rodriguez wants to know if the Institute would be willing to serve as a resource center for victims, help them recover their work, get proper credit, pursue legal action." Austin looked at Rhonda, seeing his own thoughts reflected in her eyes. This was bigger than they had imagined, but it was exactly the kind of fight they had been preparing for. "Yes," Rhonda said without hesitation, "we're in. All of us," Austin added, looking around the room at this unlikely family they had built. "Dr. Phillip, would you consider serving as the Institute's Director of Academic Integrity?" "My dear boy, I thought you'd never ask." As they began planning their expanded mission, Austin's phone buzzed with a text that made him smile. "Mom called. Wants to know when she's meeting Rhonda officially. Also, she's proud of you. Thought you should know, Vincent." Austin's relationship with his mother had been slowly healing over the past months. Dr. Samantha Harper had initially been horrified by the scandal, then impressed by his integrity in fighting back, and finally curious about the woman who had inspired such courage in her emotionally guarded son. "Everything okay?" Rhonda asked, noticing his expression. "My mother wants to meet you, officially." As opposed to the 3 video calls where she interrogated me about my intentions toward her son. Those were informal interrogations. This would be formal. Family dinner, inquisition about our future plans, the works. Rhonda smiled, that radiant expression that still made Austin's world shift on its axis. "I'd love to meet her properly. Though I should warn you, my mother's flying in from Trinidad next week for the Institute's official launch. She's very excited to meet the man who stole her daughter's heart." "Stole?" Austin raised an eyebrow. "I prefer to think of it as a fair trade." "What did you trade?" Austin moved closer, his hand settling on her waist. "My freedom. My carefully controlled life. My emotional walls. My certainty that love was a weakness instead of a strength. That's quite a list. Worth every sacrifice." Austin's voice grew serious. "Rhonda, 3 months ago, I thought success meant building the perfect company, controlling every variable, never letting anyone close enough to hurt me. You taught me that real success means building something with someone you trust completely." Rhonda's eyes grew soft with emotion. "You taught me that protecting other people doesn't mean sacrificing yourself, that I could choose both, helping my family and pursuing my dreams." "Speaking of dreams," Austin said, reaching into his jacket pocket, "I have something for you." He pulled out a small velvet box, and Rhonda's breath caught. "Austin, I know it's only been 3 months. I know we met during the worst crisis of our lives. I know that sane people don't make life-changing decisions this quickly." Austin opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, not just a diamond, but a design that incorporated the mathematical symbols from quantum mechanics. the equations that have brought them together. But I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life discovering new things with you, about science, about love, about what we can build together. Rhonda stared at the ring, tears gathering in her eyes. Is that a proposal, Mr. Carmichael? That's a promise, Dr. Long. A promise that whatever challenges we face, whatever discoveries we make, whatever fights we choose to fight, we do it together. Austin's voice was steady, certain. Rhonda, will you marry me? The room had gone completely quiet. Dr. Phillip, Sarah, and Dr. Vasquez were watching with barely concealed excitement, while Vincent stood in the doorway, trying to pretend he wasn't recording the moment on his phone. Rhonda looked into Austin's gray eyes, these eyes that had been full of desperate pain when she first met him and were now shining with hope and love and absolute certainty. Yes, she said simply, yes to everything. As Austin slipped the ring onto her finger, as their friends erupted in cheers and congratulations, as Vincent probably captured the moment for posterity, Rhonda felt the vital piece of her new life clicking into place. The girl who had sacrificed her dreams to drive for Uber was gone. The woman who stood here now was Dr. Rhonda Long, quantum cryptography expert, co-founder of a research institute, fiancée to the love of her life, protector of brilliant minds everywhere. So what now? Austin asked, as they were finally aligned again, the others having left to plan celebration dinners and call family members with the news. Now we change the world, Rhonda said, admiring the way her engagement ring caught the afternoon light streaming through the conference room windows. We protect researchers. We advance quantum computing. We show the world that love and ambition aren't mutually exclusive. And tonight? Rhonda smiled, that mischievous expression that had been driving him crazy for 3 months. Tonight, we go home to our apartment. We order takeout from that Trinidad restaurant my mother recommended. And we practice being engaged. Practice? Well, engagement is a new quantum state for both of us. We need to make sure we understand all the variables before we collapse the wave function into marriage. Austin laughed, pulling her close. Dr. Long, that is the sexiest use of quantum mechanics I've ever heard. Just wait until I explain my theories about entangled hearts at the wedding. As they left Carmichael Technologies together, heading home to the life they had built from crisis and courage, Austin reflected on how completely his world had changed. 3 months ago, he had been a successful but isolated man who measured his worth by his achievements and his ability to control every aspect of his existence. Now, he was half of a partnership that was changing the world, not through dominance or control, but through trust, collaboration, and the revolutionary idea that brilliant people could accomplish extraordinary things when they supported each other instead of competing. A man who had once believed that vulnerability was weakness had learned that opening his heart to Rhonda had made him stronger than he had ever imagined possible. And the woman who had once believed that choosing herself meant abandoning others had discovered that loving Austin and building the institute allowed her to protect more people, more dreams, more brilliant minds than she could have ever saved alone. 8 months later, their wedding was featured on the cover of Technology Today magazine with the headline, Love, Innovation, and the Future of Ethical Research. The article detailed how their partnership had revolutionized not just quantum computing security, but the entire culture of tech industry collaboration. But Austin's favorite part of the coverage was a small quote from Rhonda near the end of the article. The most important discovery of my career wasn't an algorithm or a protocol. It was learning that when you find someone who sees your true worth, who fights for your dreams as fiercely as their own, who makes you braver and kinder and more brilliant than you ever thought possible, that's not just love. That's quantum entanglement of the heart, and it's unbreakable. As Austin read those words on their honeymoon in Trinidad, surrounded by Rhonda's extended family and the warmth of her cultural heritage, he understood that she was right. They had created something unbreakable. Not just their love, but their partnership, their mission, their commitment to protecting brilliant minds and changing the world one discovery at a time. And it had all started with a bleeding billionaire, collapsing into the back seat of an Uber, trusting a stranger to help him when everyone else had given up. Sometimes the most important algorithms couldn't be coded. Sometimes the most revolutionary discoveries happened in the human heart. Sometimes love was the most powerful technology of all. Have you ever found someone who saw your true worth when the world couldn't? What did that teach you about the power of authentic love? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, please like this video and subscribe to Sage King Stories for more tales of love, courage, and transformation. Tomorrow, we'll share another story about finding unexpected allies in life's most challenging moments. Remember, the most beautiful love stories often begin in the most unlikely circumstances. Keep your heart open to possibilities, and never underestimate the power of showing kindness to a stranger in crisis. Until tomorrow, this is Sage King reminding you that true love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be the best version of yourself.